This is my second preliminary winter forecast for the 2024 to 2025 winter season. First, we will discuss the factors playing into this winter season. The primary factors still consist of the development of a La Nina pattern, the potential for stratospheric warming, and the Arctic oscillation pattern. Though there aren't any changes to the factors themselves, smaller details within the factors have changed that may affect the winter season. I am about to replay a section from my previous winter forecast that discusses the basics of these patterns, so if you already know what they mean or don't have interest in knowing, skip to 2 minutes and 25 seconds. The most major factor is the La Nina that is expected this year. It occurs when waters in the central and east-central equatorial Pacific cool below average. This pattern usually results in warmer and drier conditions in the south, and colder and wetter conditions in the north. This is the most impactful towards our weather patterns, both in the USA and across the globe, and especially affects wintertime patterns. Another factor is the potential for stratospheric warming over the North Pole. A sudden stratospheric warming is a significant disruption of the stratospheric polar vortex. The winds of the polar vortex can weaken so much during these events that they can reverse from being westerly to easterly. This leads to cold air descending and warming rapidly. In simpler terms, warm temperatures settle in the North Pole and Arctic air is pushed southward into Canada and America. This could play a major role in who sees frigid temperatures and could also set the stage for prime major snowstorm conditions for many, if it happens, of course. The final main factor will be the Arctic oscillation pattern over the Northern Hemisphere. The Arctic oscillation, sometimes referred to as AO, is an atmospheric circulation pattern over the mid to high latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere. During the winter, the North American weather patterns are significantly affected by the AO. When there is a positive AO, the jet stream is stronger and Arctic air is contained well to the north. However, when there is a negative AO, things get really interesting. The jet stream becomes weaker, creating a wavy pattern in the jet stream in which Arctic air pushes south and warm air pushes north, creating jet stream ridges. In short, positive AO leads to warmer and calmer weather and negative AO leads to colder and turbulent weather. Now we will get into the smaller details and the factors that have changed since the last winter update. First off, the La Nina, which has officially developed, may weaken faster than initially thought. The changes for a neutral phase rapidly increase starting around the November-December-January timeframe, and even reach a 50-50 chance by February-March-April timeframe, which is extremely low confidence. This could cause the pattern for the back half of the winter season to be different than initially thought. Another change is that we are now able to better predict the types of Arctic oscillations. The two most frequent types possible are the positive and negative East Pacific oscillations. If you want to pause to read and take a closer look, feel free to do so, but in summary, a positive East Pacific oscillation keeps the Arctic air bottled up in Canada, while a westerly flow of the jet stream brings mild Pacific air over the lower 48, including most of America. On the other hand, a negative East Pacific oscillation creates a northerly flow of mild Pacific air into Alaska, pushing Arctic air downward into the lower 48 and America. These factors, coupled with the increased potential for sudden stratospheric warming events, could make for a wildly unpredictable winter season. This one will be a hard one to forecast. Now it is time to show my second edition of the temperature, precipitation, and overall forecast maps for this winter season. Starting off with the temperature map, this first section is where warmer than average temperatures are expected. This section covers the southwest, deep south, and east coast regions. This is a notable change from our previous forecast, which did not include the upper east coast under warmer temperatures. This next section is where the warmest temperatures are expected. This section covers the southwest, some of the deep south, and the southeast regions. This is about the same as the first forecast, but is extended a little bit further north in the southeast. Moving on from warmth, this section is where colder than average temperatures are expected. This section covers much of the northwest, north central, and northern plains, as well as some of Maine. Unlike last forecast, this section no longer covers the Ohio Valley. This next section is where even colder than average temperatures are expected. This section covers much of the northwest, north central, and northern plains, like the other section. More of the northwest is covered by this region than before, and it is still retreated from the Ohio Valley. This final section is where the coldest temperatures are expected this season. This section covers the north-central states and is about the same as last forecast, with minimal changes to the location. Moving on to the precipitation forecast, this first section is where drier than average conditions are expected. This section covers the southwest and deep south regions. This forecast has less of the southeast in this section than the previous one. This next section is where even drier conditions are expected. This section covers much of the same areas, with the dividing line being a little bit further south. Areas in and around Texas are now expected to be a lot drier than previously thought. This next section is where the driest conditions are expected. This section covers Southern California and much of the area in and around Texas. The area covering Texas is a big flip from last forecast, as we weren't expecting horribly dry weather. Moving on from dry weather, this first section is where wetter than average conditions are expected. This area covers the Northwest, Ohio Valley, and Northeast regions. The area over the Mid-Atlantic is extended further south, but overall it is very similar to last forecast. This next section is where even wetter conditions are expected. This section covers the upper Northeast, Ohio Valley, and Northeast regions. The area over the Northeast is smaller than last forecasts, and the one over the Mid-Atlantic has been pushed further south as well. Now it is time to move on to the overall forecast map. Starting off in the gray section, more snow is expected. The combination of above-average precipitation and below-average temperatures will lead to above-average snowfall across this region, including the lower elevations. Ski resorts in this area will likely have a successful season. In the dark green section, stormy conditions are expected. Snowfall is still expected, but the temperatures won't be cold enough to sustain as much snow, so much of the precipitation will fall as rain. In the orange section, warm and dry conditions are expected. This is common during a La Niña for these areas, so this is not too surprising. In the brown section, very dry conditions are expected. These areas make up our two spots where conditions will be excessively dry, which could be problematic for California and Texas. In the light screen section, seasonably stormy conditions are expected. Precipitation will fall more commonly as rain, and precipitation in general should be near average to slightly above average. In the light blue section, cold and snowy conditions are expected. This is an area that will likely see an active storm track combined with frequent cold air in place, which could lead to big snowstorms and blizzards. In the blue section next to it, Arctic blasts are expected. The polar vortex will likely be quite active this year, so these areas should receive plenty of Arctic air invasions throughout the season. In the purple section, strong Arctic blasts are expected. This is the same as the previous section, but the temperatures here will be even colder, which will make parts of the year frigid and potentially dangerous. In the pink section, a winter battle zone is expected. This is where all types of precipitation can be expected frequently, such as rain, snow, ice, sleet, and freezing rain. This area will be very hard to forecast during the season. In the dark blue section, snowstorms are expected. Despite the slightly warmer temperatures, an active storm track should give this section plenty of opportunities to see snow, which could even put our snow totals above average for the season. In the black section, average conditions are expected. This is one of the few areas in the country that will probably see around an average year. Lastly, in the red section, the worst of winter is expected. This is where the worst overall weather conditions will be, as there will be cold outbreaks, an active storm track, and lake-effect snowfall. Additionally, high winds are likely across this section when a cold front passes through, leaving the potential for damaging winds and dangerous wind chills. This area should prepare for a very turbulent winter season. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you found this video helpful and subscribe for more weather updates.